Hello everyone and happy Tuesday. I'd like to talk today about a super fantastic productivity strategy, and that is the productivity strategy of doing less. Yay! Now, let's be clear, this isn't always the productivity strategy that's required. Sometimes doing more is required. So I'm not getting you off the hook. But I did want to talk about it really in light of the conversation, the Facebook Live on Thursday about perfectionism. So Thursday we talked about perfectionism, and I talked about a variety of ways that perfectionism shows up. And one of the ways is through procrastination or getting paralyzed. Your expectations are so high that you just get paralyzed and you procrastinate. There is one symptom of perfectionism that I didn't talk about that I want to talk about today, and that is workaholism, working around the clock that eventually leads to burnout. So isn't it interesting that for perfectionism, it can show up in both those ways, in both being paralyzed, doing nothing, and doing everything. Why is that? So the way I think about it, the way I've been thinking about it, is the reason for that, the reason it can show up in two completely different ways, is because it's a coping mechanism. It has nothing to do with choice. It's a coping mechanism. It is a reaction, a habitual reaction to a certain kind of stress. The stress of perfectionism, of these high standards, either has you running like this or, oh my gosh, a deer in headlights. The stress response in the fight or flight or freeze. So because of that, workaholism, now I'm not saying that workaholism is always, like the only source of it is perfectionism. There's a variety of sources, I think, for it that we'll talk about in a moment. But I want to just put a light on the fact that working around the clock as a lifestyle is something to look at from a productivity point of view, because it's not a choice. It is a compulsion. It is a compulsive reaction to stress. The stress of performance, the stress of high standards, the stress of whatever, fill in the blank. I like to call workaholism and working around the clock. And do you know, we'll talk about other people because none of us have this, right? Have you heard people that just talk and talk and talk about how busy they are and how overwhelmed they are and oh my gosh and oh my gosh, right? So when I hear that, I'm usually a suspect. Again, this is my area of interest, so I listen carefully to that. But what I like to call this is the lazy man strategy. That working around the clock is actually the lazy man's or the lazy woman's strategy. Why? Again, because it's not a choice. It's a compulsion. It's just a reaction. Instead, when you have to make decisions about what to focus on and what not to focus on, that's when you are taking your full power of decision and responsibility. You know, to have that sense of power and impact does require responsibility. So it's easier to just push the on button and just go like a ever-ready battery or whatever, and continue to work around the clock like that. So we want to exercise some choice in what it is that we're focusing on. So I want to also, I want to go into a little bit more about, let's see what else I wanted to tell you. About what I think is behind workaholism. And again, I see workaholism as a habitual compulsive reaction and not a choice. However, sometimes we do choose to work hard. Like there might be a season where you really need to put in the extra hours, put in the extra effort, go the extra mile. So this isn't about, oh, let's just all lay on the beach and it'll all be okay. This is really about being intentional so that you can play this for the long game, because you need to be in it for the long game. So sometimes you have to do a sprint. Sometimes you're going to be running for miles, so you need to pace yourself. So I want to back up and just talk a little bit about where I think this, some things that can lead to this kind of compulsion, workaholism. And I do also want to acknowledge that this is so prevalent. If you have struggled with this, know that you are not alone. I have so many clients, so many friends, so many people in my life that at one point or another have struggled with this. So I want to just back up and unwind it a bit. One of the things that can lead to this compulsivity of working around the clock, just always being on the go, is when your sense of personal value is connected or tied to your actions, results, or performance. So when your sense of personal value is tied, intertwined with your actions, it's tied to your actions, your results, or your performance. So that's interesting to think about, right? If it's tied, then you can understand why you're constantly in motion, right? While there's that maybe even anxiety about keeping up and doing well. Now, if you can separate your sense of personal value from your action, performance, and results, then you can bring your value to your actions, performance, and results. When they're tied, your impact is actually going in the opposite direction. Instead of trying to impact something through your work, you're trying to get something through your work. You're trying to fill that bottomless pit, right? It's never ending. So productivity is deep. So I do want to acknowledge that. This is why I like it. So we're going a little deep here, but it is something to look at, to contemplate, to figure out. Is this need to be perpetually in motion tied to my sense of value? If you can deconstruct that and work with your mindset on that, then you can bring your independent personal value, sense of value, to your actions, performance, and results. The other thing that I think can foster the compulsion of workaholism is anxiety, just basic anxiety that we want to get into action. And we use movement and action to soothe a sense of anxiety. The problem is it typically isn't the solution. It's just covering it up. It's just temporarily easing even those, it's like you're taking those stress hormones and funneling it into action. But the root of those stresses is not going away. So we have to look at what is actually creating that stress and not use work to fix it, because it won't fix it. So I want to give an example of one more. I want to tell you some things to think about. But before that, I want to give you an example of a client recently of mine. And again, I've been having these conversations so much. That's why I wanted to speak about it today. I've been working with a client who is amazing, absolutely amazing. And I find this in all the clients that I work with. They are just up to really big things. They have really big lives. They have a lot of responsibility. They have many things happening on the family front and with their kids and relationships and big jobs, a lot of things happening on the work front, and just trying to balance that all. It always fills me with so much respect for what we're all up to. So with this one client, I had asked her, tell me about your day. Like, what is it like? And this was the first time we met. She told me this, and she explained that, her morning routine, which started very, very early, and getting the kids ready for school and on and on and on throughout the day, and working all day, all the meetings, then getting home, then the kids, and they go to sleep. And then what was the next thing that she did? The next thing she did was did round 2 of work. So at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, she was getting back online and doing another couple hours of work. And this cycled every single day. And I just put that away in my little thinking cap. And later, we talked about it more. And just as I got to know her more, and I suggested that she run an experiment and try not doing that late night shift of work, that voluntary shift that she was doing of work at night. And of course, this presented with a feeling of anxiety because she had been doing it to keep up. This was her time that she could keep up. And just as the amazing person she is, she decided to try it. And she's done it for months and months now. And we were just talking the other day, and she said she thinks it's one of the most impactful things that she tried out was stopping that work. It just gave her the space and the breadth and the ability to think about other things and relax and just have more spaciousness in her life that allowed her to be more strategic in her day, which was one of her goals. So I was, so impressed by this, and just in keeping with hearing so many people talk about how overwhelmed they are, how much they're working around the clock, seeing this in my clients, like I said, seeing it in my friends and in other conversations. I think it's a worthy thing to talk about. And also, it's a very contagious thing. When we hear other people are working around the clock, that gives us the idea, maybe I should be too. So you don't have to keep up with other people working around the clock. Really recognize where your action comes from and go from there. So my challenge to you is, if you do feel like the days are just super packed, maybe consider looking at one thing that you could take out of it. What's one thing you could just stop doing? I know everyone's nervous already. So see if there's something. See if doing less can actually help you have greater impact, can actually help you get more done, can actually help you sleep better at night, have the quality of life that you want. Now, what goes with this territory of choice is responsibility. And yet, what goes with responsibility is the privilege of power, right? The privilege of being able to impact the way that you want to. And that requires making choices, making decisions every day about how to use your time, your energy, your attention, your focus. So that's the topic for today. I'd be really interested in your thoughts on this topic of workaholism. And again, a spectrum. You don't have to be at the end of the spectrum of workaholism to be able to consider, am I compulsive about the way I am approaching the activities of my day, of my work? Do I feel like when I sit down for a few minutes that I have to just get busy? And if I don't get busy, something's wrong. So think about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And, sometimes, as I said, the productivity strategy is to do more, to amp up the effort. And sometimes it's to do less. And always it's your choice. It's your decision in each moment to make. And that's where your power is. So think about it. I'd love to hear, as I said. And Power Start is happening this week. Enrollment is still open. If you'd like to join us in the Power Start 2020 program, we would love to have you. It's an online program designed to help you make significant progress on your goals for 2020 and do it in a sustainable way. We're doing it step by step. In fact, my first encouragement to those who are participating is to do it with ease. Don't make the program be one more thing on my to-do list. Let it enable you. Let it empower you to do the work that you most want to do, have the impact that you most want to have in your family, in your work life, in life. So anyway, if you'd like to join us, I will put a link to the Power Start program in the comments below. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me and ask me. And I hope you have a fantastic day.